Hello, hello, and welcome everyone to In Time. My name is Nicholas Lamar Soutter, and today with me is Christopher Maute. Christopher, how are you? Oh, and now he's muted, of course. Um, well, the good news is I now honestly though that doesn't seem to be on my end. Hmm. Let me just. we,
How about this?
oh, there we go. There we go.
Damn.
It wasn't
I went
my
actually closed
fault.
my
It wasn't. I swear to God, it
I
wasn't
was
my fault.
so hoping. I was so hoping I had another thing to scream at you about.
Yeah. Well, that list is already pretty
Speaking of
long,
which,
so.
I I noticed you got a new subscriber.
Yeah, I do have a new subscriber, Christopher Christopher Ma. I don't know who Christopher Ma is, but I will say this: he's probably some schmuck who's been on the show like 6 times already and hasn't bothered to subscribe till now.
I don't know about that, but all I can say is I was having a hell of a time finding these on YouTube, and it never dawned on me that I haven't even subscribed to In Time yet, so I can just go to my subscription list and select it.
Mm-hmm.
I just keep typing in. I just keep typing In Time and an incorrectly spelt version of your name into the search window. Find the same 3 wrong videos. Correct the way to spell your name. Get another couple of videos. Click that. Click that. Click. Yeah, I'm a mess.
Well, and I honestly I understand there is a reason. There's the YouTube algorithm that everybody talks about, and I'll be bringing that up in a minute. But we used to rank very highly. If you just look up In Time, we ranked very highly. Now we don't compete with Justin Timberlake, but so the movie In Time with Justin Timberlake would usually be in the top one, 2 or 3 searches, and then would be up there. Now we're not even on the front page. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. Not the least of which is most of our tags now on our shows don't say In Time, but actually like the topic of the show. But that means we don't. Oh God, I hate YouTube algorithms. At any rate, yeah. Well, you found us. You
That
subscribed. Better
I'm
late
good.
than
I am a
never, maybe.
subscriber. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Okay.
so what are we talking about today?
Well, before we get into
I have no
today's.
idea. I come in cold every single time. I come in cold. What are we doing
Yeah,
today?
it's just like Nick. You mentioned. You mentioned.
You said you
Jesus.
wanted to punch me in the throat. So
I
that
did.
was the only thing.
I did, and you showed up anyway, which bugs me because that means you're not nearly as intimidated by me as I would have liked. Go, Nick. You're gonna punch me in the. Okay, I'll show up. Whatever happens, happens.
I'd like to see that.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, thanks. So
That
glad
was
you
funny
could.
in a very weird way. I don't think that came out the way that I intended, but
I think that
still
came
fun.
out exactly the way you did it. Um.
I am not
So,
threatening you.
yeah. Okay. Welcome to today's $400 dumpster fire, and thank you for joining us. I don't know why I'm here. Uh, we also invited Nate on for today. Nate Brody, Nate the lawyer, good friend of the show. Haven't we had him on? We tried to have him on earlier. Massive technical issues. He's just kind of bailed. But or he was good about not. It was all our fault. He was good about It's just like, look, you guys do the show, but we want to have him back on. But he wasn't able to make it today. But we're going to be talking about the universal question: when should you punch a Nazi? But before we do that, this episode will probably be demonetized. Punching Nazis is something YouTube doesn't like to put advertisers on. I don't know. We actually get demonetized for about half our shows. If you want to support the channel, Super Chats is a great way to do it. Also, you can become a member. That's another way to do it, or become a patron. Members and patrons all have access to the member section or the patron section of the Discord. We're going to be going to the Discord right after the show. We're going to keep up the conversation there, so I hope you guys will join us. And on Monday, we've got our patron hangout for patrons and members. You guys get to come in, ask me questions like, why do you put certain people on your show? I don't know that I'm going to have an answer for that. Son of a... Yeah.
I
Okay.
didn't realize you guys were there. I was just doing my guns.
Son of a... So meanwhile, I've got my energy drinks, and he's all giving me a hard time about that shit. But at
You
any
not.
rate...
I want to tell everybody right now what happened before the show started.
No.
Nick turned his camera off and goes, "Hey, I'm almost about ready to get started. Just need to get myself another cup of coffee, right?" And here I am with a
Notice how he
legitimate cup of
elevates the
coffee,
voice? He makes it much more feminine, but please continue.
That's what you sound like to me, somebody with actual dulcet tones here.
Okay.
So I'm drinking a cup of coffee. I think that he's okay. Coffee, that makes sense. Yeah. And then I think about it. I'm like, I never see Nick drink coffee. You know what I do see Nick drink? Energy drinks. Oh, come on. Oh, it is a coffee.
Yeah, no shit.
It's a coffee energy drink?
No, it's just iced coffee, medium roast, Starbucks, medium roast, unsweetened.
Mm-hmm.
Son of a.
Yeah. What else do you have? What else do you have?
You know. I am deeply offended by the. It's a great day.
I am sure that is one of the many products that are on your desk. I mean, what else? What else kind of energy drinks you got?
Dear Lord, somebody help me get through the.
Middle-aged men should not be drinking energy drinks. Period. The end.
All right, so he's got a thing about energy drinks. I don't know why. And it looks like we're having some lag issues. I will see what I can do to deal with that. I can probably make it a bit better, but I don't know. The other thing is working from home, and my wife is, of course, she's a scientist, a PhD in biochemistry. She's just started working at the Broad Institute in Massachusetts, which is really great. It's a fantastic research institute. But my suspicion, actually, it's not my suspicion, she is having, unfortunately, a meeting herself now, and we share the same bandwidth. Now, I told the friggin' scientists to just go, I mean, this is an education program. I don't know what the hell they think they're doing, sucking up my bandwidth.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait. That on behalf of scientists, go fuck yourself.
Son of a bitch.
Just saying.
I said scientists, not people who play science by virtue signaling and streaming from their lab.
Not people who play science by publishing peer-reviewed journal articles into the academic commons. Push.
Yeah. What's your peer group out of curiosity? Is it like third grade? I mean, I've seen your writing. You're aware I've seen your writing.
And then comes back. Oh my God. Anybody can write.
All right. Well, so Patreon Hangout at Monday. Even if Maute becomes a patron, I guarantee you he will not be there. We're just not. We're going to shut the door. We do have standards. So what we're gonna do is again, Nate. We weren't able to have Nate. We're just shooting the shit, hoping he can show. He's got the link, so who knows? He could show up at any time and surprise the living daylights out of us. But until then, because we do get demonetized frequently, those are sort of the best ways to help the show, because we talk about, and coming up, we've got a couple of great shows coming up. We're gonna have this guy on again for. Another for music therapy, actually, which I think is going to be really good. And we're going to be discussing. Yeah. Well, that last music show with you, I think, was spectacular. I think a lot of people had a good time. I really enjoyed it. So
I had so much fun. We got to do more of those. I have so many more questions, just general questions that'll be super fun to unpack. By non-technicians, by just music lovers. So that's what digging it. Let's keep that going.
Agreed. So we're going to do that again. We're going to do another episode of On Writing, because I am a writer, and I've written a number of books, and so we're just going to talk about how to write well and what is the process of writing. We are also going to have on. We're going to be doing some more. We try to go in themes for a couple of months, and one of the themes coming up is cancel culture. And woke culture, and this notion of what can and can't be said, and why, and can words be weaponized? Can they hurt? Which I think obviously they can, but I think that still needs some significant unpacking. So this is going to be, I think, the first in that. But we also have, it's kind of keeping in line with that, one show which I think may be a little contentious, the ontology of gender, which is currently scheduled for the 15th. We may move that around. We're still trying to lock down some details for that show.
That's going to be the controversial episode, not the one about punching Nazis.
Yeah. Believe it or not, the punching Nazis.
In a few moments, we're going to talk about punching Nazis, but we have a real controversial show coming up.
Well, there isn't as much controversy around punching Nazis as one might think, I suppose. But at any rate, so let's get this started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the video. This is from about a week ago.
Not the whole thing. You're going to play the part at the end too, right?
Yeah, I'm going to play the whole thing. It's 7 minutes. It is difficult. So there's very little we can do about that. We're going to have an adult conversation about it. So I'm going to play that video, and then we will get into we'll get into our discussion of that. So let me cue that up here really quickly. Oh, it sounds like somebody's coming in. That may be Mr. Brody. So
no, I think that was me. I sent you a message in the internal chat on vMix.
Oh, okay. All right. Let me check that. Thank you. And now, of course, it's not showing the video. So let me just make sure I can get that queued up real quick. Okay, there it is. So the video will appear in the calendar area, and let's.
Listen enough! Shut your mouth, bro!
What's it got to do with a white man? What's it got to do with a white man?
She knows,
Fucking dickhead.
Really?
Fucking dickhead, shut the fuck up.
She's backing you up, boy. She doesn't need it. You know, do you? You know as well, do you? Defend them. Go on. Get my pets.
But you know what, you're talking about me, look at me in the eye. Fucking coward.
Pets. She knows it as well. Pets. These people are doing something horrible. No. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Zoo! Get off the train. No one wants to hear this shit. No one. Not a single person on this train wants to hear that garbage from everyone else. Yes. You're the fucking righteous. So like, disgusting. Yes. Disgusting. No one yes, please, you're no one. Please. Well, it was funny, wasn't it? It's funny.
It's not funny being racist. Yeah.
Yes, funny being racist.
You know what? You've had your 5 minutes in the train. Now fuck off and get out the train.
Popular now, though, isn't it? So when you're popular now, yeah, get it out now, boy. Yeah, wow. Wow, boys. Get it out, boy. Who's your fan? Yo, it's popular now. Yo, get wild. Yo!
Please note that this train will not stop at the next station.
Popular now, isn't it? Popular! It's popular now! Come on! It's popular now! This is my home. You're all going back. You know it as well. You know we're going back. Go on. Keep going. I'm fucking breaking the internet. I'm popular. What's your name? You know what my name is? Billy Still. What's your name? Billy Still. What's your name? Tell me your name. No, you're black.
You're black? What does that mean?
Oh my god. Yeah,
what does black have to do with anything? What does being black have to do with anything?
Shut up. This is popular.
What's popular?
This is popular.
Sir, you're crazy. Yeah, I think he's crazy. You're a fucking lunatic, and I can guarantee you're not 100% white. You are not white. You come from somewhere else. You do realise that? Yes, I am so good. Thank you for gassing me up. Yes, I am.
So educated.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. So you're fucking coming off as one of
so educated.
You fucking dickhead.
You're so educated.
Okay, you might be 5 minutes away. Fuck off. Okay?
So
you're a bigoted cunt.
Yes.
You know that? Yeah, do agree. Thank you. Bow down to the ground.
This is Central Line train to Epping.
I think he has a death switch actually. I think he wants someone to jump in, kick his head in.
shower? Why do you have to shower? Shouting does not make a point.
Medium stuff.
Why do you make my mouth? Yeah, you're lucky I have a fucking platform. I'm gonna be posting it today. Trust me.
What have I got to
The
be?
next station is back.
What have I got to be?
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Change here for the Circle, District,
send me that.
Northern and Waterloo
Your
City
Instagram?
Line, and the Route is back. Please mind the gap
What?
Exactly! Fucking racist! You fucking racist. You deserve that. You deserve that.
Call help.
Go help a racist. Let him lie there.
He's an idiot.
He deserves that. He deserves that for all the shit he spoke. No, don't move him.
Yes, there is a problem.
Instigate! Do not instigate, please! Do not guys, you. Guys,
The geezers, mate.
you called them geezers, they're not geezers. There were 3 boys sitting on the train. They provoked him. Oh my god, this is ridiculous. Let's just leave it alone. So, I'm on a train and a racist got knocked out.
Are you coming to stay down? Stay down. Stay down. Stay down. Yeah. Stay down.
Everybody come away, please.
Literally, you don't need to feed.
All right, so that's the incident. Happened in the London Underground about a week ago. Like I said, I do apologize for the lag. Wife is working from home, so when she has a meeting, which she had one, stopped, did another one. So unfortunately, it does slow us down a bit. But we are now joined by. It ended up being a plus because we are joined by Nate the lawyer, Nate Brody. Nate, how are you?
Boom. I forgot to turn on my mic. I am doing okay. What's going on? How you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing good. We're doing good.
Good to see you, man. Good to see you.
Oh, awesome. It's good to see you guys too. It's funny because all that time we were just talking. My daughter was watching Dora the Explorer. As soon as you said, "Hey Nate, here she comes," I want water. But it's okay. It's okay. Come here.
The one thing so you got the same problem I do. People are always asking me, "Gee, Nick, have you seen Stranger Things? Have you seen this? Have you seen that?" And I was just like, no. But I'm up to date on Dora. I know exactly. Like last week, Swiper he actually got the map. He got the map, and it was touch and go there. But she convinced him to give up. Yeah.
You tell me
You're
you're not
swiping, no
a
swiping. Peppa Pig, yeah. Peppa Pig is huge.
Oh Jesus, yeah.
Peppa Pig is huge.
Come on, you gotta have favorites.
We might have to put the whole paid promotion here because we're promoting them all. Peppa Pig, Dora, you know.
Yeah, we should get.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and I learned
The
this.
show is by Nickelodeon.
So, yeah, because I never had that growing up either. Hey, it's Nick, Nickelodeon. It's that and the $400 suit's great. I just love having you guys on. Thanks for coming.
We get the lawyer in the suit.
Nate's another one. Nate's another one who gets demonetized a lot. So go check him out. Check out his stuff. I don't have the link in the description, but we will drop the link in a moment, and we will put it in the description. He does a lot of stuff, and he's going to be covering. We've covered some. We did a whole series on YouTube and YouTube channels, and we covered a show, the Non Sequitur show. I think we're done on that. We're moving on from it. But Nate was kind enough to invite me on to just cover some of the stuff a while. But you're going to be covering. I guess there's something big happening with that tomorrow, and you're going to be covering that live.
Yeah, it has the not tomorrow. Next week, the September 11th.
It's September.
Day.
Oh, I thought it was.
That's when they have the
Okay.
That's when they have the big case. That's when they go to court and sit in front of a judge. So what we've done, what I'm doing is I have the live stream, because now everything is web conference. So we got the live stream. We're going to watch and see what happens. See what the judge says about Steve and Kyle's claim. So
all right.
And I think it'll be a good civics lesson too.
I think so, and I think I always like your content, and I think it's fair. It's interesting. If you really, and you're also This is another reason why it's good to have you here, and then we'll let Chris talk, because I guess he wants to get in a word edgewise or something. But you're a lawyer, former police officer, former prosecutor, and currently you teach as well. You teach law, is that right?
Yeah. I finished teaching law. I was teaching at a law school. My title was law school lecturer, so I was a professor, but I wasn't a full professor. Mm-hmm. So I did that for 2 years, and now I'm in private practice. And to be honest with you, it was easy to teach, because private practice is a pain. It is a fucking pain, but it is what it is, So I do have a little unique perspective, especially being black and having this law enforcement background. I think,
really?
it gives you a different perspective than most people.
You were black.
Oh God, here we go. Fucking Maute. Jesus, he's gonna pull one of those Colbert. I don't see race. Which actually brings. I'd love to have you on too. We're going to be having on. We're going to be discussing. We had Robert Reed. We did his video, which I thought it was a very short video. We did it on Nick of Time. Believe it or not, yes, that's what it's called. Just little shorts. We had the video, but he talked a bit about it, and you got me turned around. My position. I had one position on the shooting of Mr. Blake. I think it was his name Blake now. I wasn't prepared to talk about it, so I didn't refresh my. So you got me turned around on that. I was sort of going one way. You got me, but as a police officer, as a black man, as a attorney, as a former prosecutor, I think you've got some interesting perspectives on it. So I look forward to discussing it all with you far more. But let's get to the topic. And so we've just seen this video.
Before we do,
yes, please.
Before we do, I definitely want to get Nate's opinion on this. The name of the video is When to Punch a Nazi, and that video, we just need to make clear, that is not a video of a Nazi getting punched.
Good point.
Right?
Thank you.
We are just talking about a theme having to do with, and there are videos of Richard Spencer. There are videos of Richard Spencer and other Nazis getting sucker punched as well. So if we were to take out the word Nazi and just replace it with bigot, I think that's kind of some bigoted behavior is what we're seeing here get sucker punched. But obviously having Nazi tendencies certainly puts them in the bigoted category, right? But this video isn't specifically about a Nazi getting punched.
I think that's a good legal clarification. So yeah, thank you. And that's interesting. Yeah, because I had said Nazi, and there's no evidence he's a Nazi per se. He is clearly a racist and or a bigot and or phenomenally drunk. So yeah, he's an asshole. Oh, when to punch an asshole. That should have been the title.
That would have been a good title. Hold on. I got an official email from North Carolina judicial assistant. We have been approved. So we will be live. They sent me all the credentials. We will be live September 11th. Nick, you guys gotta come. We gotta Maute's gotta be here. Nick's we gotta do 10 a.m.
I will be there.
September 11th. We all gotta be there, and we're gonna watch this train wreck go full train wreck.
If you want me there, I will be there. I don't turn down an invitation. I will be there.
If you're inviting
gotta
me,
be there because it's his birthday. Yes.
All right.
Dragnot's birthday, so he's gonna be there. We gotta make it happen.
All right, perfect. So, all right. So you're approved. You're credentialed. I don't know. Obviously, North Carolina has different standards than I'm used to, but nonetheless, we're good. So, okay. what we saw here was a guy who was saying some pretty nasty stuff on the subway. It started out with I think he had said, well, either whites are better or I am better. Better than you, and he just kept sort of repeating it and being very so. Eventually, there's a couple of younger black males. One of them decided he had enough, punched him in the face, knocked his ass out. He is lying on the ground, and I have to. Very gratifying. I'm not going to sit there and lie and say it wasn't gratifying to watch.
It's embarrassing to admit the Schadenfreude in retributive justice, right? But these are, in my point, these are the very instincts that we should be acting against. Yes. Within a certain framework. Let's get to it, piece at a time.
So, and then the second part that I found interesting and even a little concerning is he's unconscious, and somebody just goes, "You can one punch kill somebody." It actually happened. My wife had a friend in high school who was accidentally killed with a single punch. The punch was presumably intended for the face. It went down, hit the neck, broke the yeah, and the guy suffocated. And this was a guy she knew. It was just a single punch. Nobody intended to kill anyone. They did intend to obviously to have a fight. But so somebody does due diligence checks, and people are sitting there going, "Don't help him. He's. I think they actually did say like he's a Nazi or they said he's a racist. Don't help him. He's lying down there. Obviously,
I think that's the more disturbing part. That's the most disturbing part of the video for me.
I don't know that it's the most disturbing, but it's at least equal to everything else. I agree. Nate, what were you going to say?
Well, to be honest with you, I think the most disturbing part is the punch, for me. And the reason why is, in law school, when we were first learning about the First Amendment and the freedom of speech, it was understanding how at the beginning, it was really about privileged speech, right? Certain speech, you are privileged, and certain speech are what they call protected, and certain speeches are what they call unprotected. Now, the problem here is that if we go back 50 years ago, the people who are getting punched in the face for saying wrong things were people in the South advocating for civil rights, right? Because most of the people down there thought that was the thing, that was a bad thing, These colored people, if you go back even further, people advocating for abolition of slaves, they were thought to be the bad people. You could be arrested in some place in the South for doing that, it was illegal. So when you're talking about advocating violence for speech, I think when you open the door up to someone being bigoted and saying bad words to you, the door, who decides what's bad enough to be punched at that point? Because today it could be a Nazi, tomorrow it could be BLM, and to have society make that choice on each of these individual instances, I think we together are not. I don't want to say. I'm trying to figure out the word I want to say. I don't think we're that advanced enough to be able to make those choices. So I'd rather protect all speech than to limit, than to be able to have somebody pick and choose what I can be punched to say and what I cannot be punched to say. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense to me. And the other thing is, of course, if you flip it around, what if the train had a number of people like him on it? And somebody was saying, I have, and you had a black man who was saying, what people don't understand is there's systemic racism, and it's making, it's bad for everyone, it's bad for me, it's even bad for you. And then he said, what, this asshole deserves to be punched. So I think that's another way of looking at roughly the same thing you're saying. And I certainly think in the United States, south of the Mason-Dixon line, there are certain things you can say that are going to have some pretty significant consequences that north of the Mason-Dixon line are considered. I don't want to say, well, maybe just things, but more, they're acceptable or even considered just sort of, they're well understood. But south of the Mason-Dixon line, you could have some issues. So I think that's it. So, Chris, what do you think? You've already started to identify a few things. Or actually, before we get to vigilantism is the other one, because it smacks of vigilantism, where it's like, okay, I don't like what you're going to say, so I'm going to take it into my own hands to stop your speech for some reason. And I think we do need to accept words can hurt people. Words can really hurt people. Bullying is a thing. Online bullying is a thing. People committing suicide because they're getting teased, taunted. All of these are things. So, yes, anybody who says words can't hurt, and so we have to allow it. No, words can absolutely hurt, and sometimes they're geared to hurt. But the problem is you still have a category shift here from the kind of damage that can be done with words, which cannot be ignored, to somebody taking the law, what they perceive to be the law or justice, into their own hands. Anyways, Chris, I cut you off like 2 or 3 times.
That's all good. So, I mean, there's so much to unpack here. It's tough to just, tease one thread out without it, unraveling the whole fabric, right? So for me, obviously, I'm going to frame it in more psychological terms. And I like the fact that Nate puts it in very legal terms. For the greater good of society, the laws that protect free speech, even if it's speech that you don't like, does a greater good than maybe you could imagine in moments where you're hearing speech that you don't like, right? Am I paraphrasing you correctly, Nate?
Yes, you're exactly. You have to protect the speech you don't like, so you can be free to speak what you want to speak.
I love that. So that in mind, we kind of have to keep in mind that
starting January, my school is going to do campus 2 days.
You yourself, Nate.
Am I muted?
No.
You guys can still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
There we go. That's muted. You were saying?
Okay. So from a psychological perspective, like we know that we can, humans are open to a range of behaviors. We want to feel safe in the society that we live in, right? So that being said, that's one of the reasons where kind of, laws came in as a way of providing structure to the societies. So I couch this very much within the world of, you can say whatever you want, but that doesn't mean that you can say it without consequences. And unfortunately, you don't know who is in the audience of people listening to you. So even though I am of the opinion that the values I have for me are to, in the face of hearing speech I don't like, control my impulses, engage in delay of gratification, and to just understand that that person's having a bad day in a way that my self-respect should be a force field against insult, right? That's my position for me. Do I also think that's good for everybody else? Absolutely. But, no, we're all charmed by our own ideas, right?
Yes.
That being said, I like living in a society where that kind of retributive justice is a threat to really extreme versions of speech that people think they can get away with, right? I think that behavior that we just saw, that I don't necessarily agree with, I think that its existence helps mediate people who want to take advantage of or find loopholes in the way that they can use First Amendment free speech, if that makes sense. So let me put this a different way. I have an analogy for atheism and abortion, which is a little bit more radical. But for atheism, my go-to phrase is, I think the world needs atheist activists. I'm just not one of them. Because I have a greater picture where atheist activists are kind of pulling from the fundamental activists everything towards the middle, and I want the middle. So in getting the middle, I am all for atheist activists. I'm just not one of them. As it applies to abortion, I think that abortion is murder. End of discussion. I also think from a pragmatic perspective, access to abortion is better for society than not having access to abortion. Also end of the discussion. Apply that analogy here. I'm not going to punch someone in the head, or let me rephrase that. I'm going to work as hard as I can. Not to punch somebody in the head.
Yeah.
I can't make any promises. Again. So I'm going to make sure that I'm not going to punch anyone in the face anymore. In such a way that I feel secure in my society should there be people who want to shut other people up with a punch to the face. I don't promote it. I don't condone it. But its existence doesn't bother me. Because it's kind of in the gray area of where the law is and where, the rubber hits the road on like living life. So I know it's not a satisfying answer because it's not like, what's that?
That was well said.
I didn't hear him.
Okay.
I didn't hear what Nate said. That was all scratchy, and I don't know. Whatever he
Give me
said.
a compliment, for fuck's sake, Nick.
Yeah, well, yeah, well, I guess it's so rare to hear that I just couldn't process. But at any rate, um, he just wants to get on your channel. That's all. That's literally all it is.
Please, Nick. Please, Nick. Please. Anything but Nick's channel.
Oh, oh,
Okay, we're back. That should be better with the microphone too, right?
that sounds a bit better. Yeah, yeah.
All right, yeah.
That's
Because
good.
now I'm actually using this microphone. It was my camera microphone that was on.
I
Well,
thought
and
that you sounded
I
like
got one here. I gotta start using that. But Chris
Nate.
hasn't
It
helped me set it
sounded
up.
like you were using a room mic. I was able to hear your whole room in a way that I can't when you're using your good mic. But I didn't want to say anything because I'm like, I don't want to. Anyway, so now we got you on the good mic.
So
Yes. So you can hear me now.
So the live chat's been really pretty busy, and we've been putting some of what they've been saying up on the screen. I will say, so I like the idea also. It's like free speech doesn't necessarily shield you from consequences of that speech. I think there are other ramifications that need to be considered too. This guy now has probably I can't speak with certainty on this. It's really a psychological issue, but I have to believe that a lot of his opinions about black people have now, in his view, been affirmed. Look how uncivil they are. I'm just talking, and they punched me in the face. And I had heard it said once, because I was in a discussion with a number of people about this. They said, well, yeah, but he ain't going to do that shit again. He may not. He was drunk. He'll probably think twice about it. Maybe he won't. And it's great that he won't be spreading that kind of speech around. I do think that that's kind of a positive thing. But what happens then is a lot of people tend to go underground with this kind of thinking. And the reason I like the fact that the KKK can have rallies is because then I know who the assholes are, and I know roughly how many of them there are. And I know that when they're talking, they aren't doing violence. If you take a look at most of the mass shooters, I shouldn't say most, but many of the mass shooters, especially the Virginia Tech one that was the one that held it. He did a manifesto, and in it he says, you will hear me. I'm going to be heard. Same thing happened with the shooter in what is it? New Zealand, who after shooting up a mosque was just like, nobody hears me. Nobody's listening to what I have to say. And when people are talking, the one thing they're not doing is shooting at each other. And I don't want to speak, Nate knows a lot more about the law than I do, but I think at least one principle, I think that's actually a principle in the law, which is if you keep people, suing each other, and if you keep people, engaged in court when they're talking, they're not trying to take the law into their own hands, and they're not necessarily, committing acts of violence. So it's about finding a way to part of a civilized society is putting up with speech that you don't like, and in fact, in some cases, that may be dangerous, so that you have that opportunity when people don't agree with your speech. How does that sound?
But the fact that there's free speech absolutists, and there's I think like the legal definition or the legal understanding of free speech, because not all speech is free of violence. Mm-hmm. Yelling, you're screaming fire in a crowded theater, right? Even though you're not physically harming somebody, but the potential harm from doing that is violence, or going into a bank. What do they say for people who do suicide by cop? They say, "Hey, pig," put their hands in their pocket and says, "Drawing 3, 1, 2." That, even though that person may not have a gun, that speech is dangerous. So. And even threats of violence, right? You can't go out there and say you're going to, assassinate a head of state or something like that, because that precipitates violence. So I think there are fine lines when speech does become dangerous or does cross that line. But I also think when you're talking about speech that offends, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about speech that offends. The difference is that there's the principle of might makes right? So if you do allow physical violence or that type of, the person who can punch the Nazi, or if we have a bus full of Nazis versus a bus full of BLMs, then, your speech matters, because, based on what you say, you may get punched in the face, When we're talking like that, we don't want to have the society become where, the person with the biggest fist and the strongest muscles is able to speak freely, and everyone else has to watch what they say, And I think that's the goal here. and that's the goal in here in the United States. And that's why when you talk about Nazis, and I think it was Illinois, they wanted to hold a rally. They wanted to say their horrible things. And it was a Jewish lawyer who represented them because he understood that they may want to talk their nonsense. But the fact of the matter is that if you live in a civilized society, it's the marketplace of ideas. And their ideas are shit. And the more people will hear their ideas and understand why they're shit, then the less likely they're going to affect the mass group of people. You know, they if you go back 100 years, the KKK were very convincing, right? But today, today they're almost embarrassed, and all that happened not because people were out there punching them in the face. It's because we realized that those were bad ideas. You know, no, if you can still go to the South and still go to a KKK rally and so forth, right? They're still popular. But I think us as a society, we know how to isolate that type of speech. And now, obviously we have cancel culture now. And I think that's the goal is not to force people to be quiet, but to expose the ideas for the frauds they are. That's the power of free speech.
So we've got a couple comments. One, Director Arcatir, I'm just amazed at the sheer gleeful manner in which people, including some here, will assume and believe with total certainty that anyone they disagree with is a Sieg Heil Nazi. Well, we did. I did. The title did say, "When should you punch a Nazi?" And we actually clarified, thanks specifically to Christopher Maute, who said, we don't know that he's a Nazi. In fact, there's no evidence he's a Nazi. He does obviously share some ideology with them, but that doesn't make him one, and we don't know.
Clickbait, man. Clickbait.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair, the example that we put on the thumbnail was in fact from about a year ago, and it was a Nazi. He had the Nazi banner on his arm and was getting punched for roughly the same kind of thing. So I think that's a fair point. But so now there's a couple of interesting counter arguments, and I think Chris may have a few. One that I was thinking of. One problem is that, okay, you can have the marketplace of ideas, which is something I believe in, and I truly think that over time, and I don't know if just because there are problems with it means it's wrong, but here's one, which is you can have people with bad ideas who are able to shout down people with good ideas, who are able to stop the conversation by basically shouting louder, speaking louder, and by being more obnoxious. So what do you do in the face of speech like that?
So are you talking about like mob rule, or just like two individuals?
Well, two individuals who, let's say you have a Black Lives Matter rally, and then you have people who are being disruptive with speech that is presumably their free speech. We won't get into whether it's being done on private property or not, because that does. But they're shouting down ideas, and they're being so disruptive that the counter ideas can't be heard, and they're doing it explicitly to disrupt people who have counter ideas. They're either trolling, they are.
It's called well, in law, there's actually a term for that. It's called the heckler's veto.
Yeah, that's that. Yes,
it's
thank
called
you.
The heckler's veto.
Yes, heckler's veto. That's what I'm looking for.
So explain that to those of us that aren't familiar with
for those who don't know what the heckler's veto is it's that let's say you have a speaker who is up there saying something, and this used to happen back at like protests for I think for both World War I and Vietnam, where you have a speaker get up and who was against the war. We're against the war. This. So you'd have another group of people come, and what they would do was scream and yell and make such a ruckus that the police would come and remove the speaker. So even if the speaker had great ideas, because everyone's up there shouting and there seemed to be a problem with public safety, then what the police would do is remove the speaker, right? So they called that the heckler's veto. If you got enough people to cause a big scene, then they could actually curtail speech. So the Supreme Court said, well, in that situation, the police, their job is to protect the person speaking from the mob, right? So you want to keep everybody back, which would be preferable to allow the speech to continue. So that's what we're talking about, and this does happen, but in law, it's the police. Most police departments and law enforcement know about this and are trained to make sure that that doesn't happen. That's why now in a lot of these protests and things of that nature, you'll see people speaking crazy stuff, and the police will protect them no matter what nonsense they're speaking, as long as obviously it's not criminal, but whatever nonsense they're speaking, and protect them from the crowd.
Okay, so so it sounds like at least, but that is an argument that I've heard for actually for being responding with some form of violence against people who are deliberately being disruptive, and that's justified. Now, there was a comment here that I like. The question is less, when is it justified to punch a Nazi? Always, and more, when should you punch a Nazi? Which is rarely, which I think was perhaps an interesting framing of maybe a position we all hold, but Chris was sort of
when you should punch a Nazi. Is that the question?
When you should versus yeah.
Let's not get into that SOP. Let's not get into that.
Okay.
SOP.
So did you have other?
Hold on a second.
Please.
I do want to address the idea that you don't have a right to be heard. Right? You might have the best idea in the world, but there is no way that you can express it in such a way that people are obliged to listen to you, right? Any opinion that exists, your right to express it supports my right to disagree with you. And I might want to disagree with you by, while you're talking, having an air horn blowing. Tough shit. Like I think that's just as protected as the actual speech. I mean, again, within the limits of these are just sounds and not threats or physical aggression.
Yeah, I like you'll see that. What's the guy's name here on YouTube? Crowder. When Crowder does his and you'll see people drive up with their cars and start blasting loud music, right? But then you'll see the police.
That's exactly what I was referencing. That's exactly what I was referencing. He did one where somebody rolled up on their motorcycle and was blasting the engine.
But the thing is that now you have ordinances, though, because a lot of times when you're doing those events, you have permits. There's noise restrictions in a lot of places. Like a lot of places, you can't just play loud music, and you have to have permits and things of that nature. And I know like here in New York, you can't have they do the heckler's vetoes a little differently, because that's what's happening here is that people come with bullhorns and everybody just shout down, and people are like, well, I can say everything as loud as I want. So New York passed regulations to say, well, you can't have any enhancements to your audio. Right, so I can scream as loud as I want, but it couldn't be enhanced. I can't have a microphone and speakers. So then, what they would do now is that everybody kind of has a script, and everybody shouts in unison. So to overcome the heckler. So yeah, so there are opportunities to do it, but I think now most jurisdictions have with those time, place, and manner rules where if somebody is in a spot, they're permitted. They can speak freely, and then those who want to disrupt their speech, they also would have to have that same time, place, and manner restrictions. Do they have a permit? Are they lawfully to be there? And what distance they can be from the speaker, even if they do want to stop that speech from occurring.
There is one that got me thinking of, and I forget who this guy is, but he videos himself at KKK rallies, and what he does is he just grabs a trumpet. And he just starts, but he does like Happy Birthday. He gets into some really silly tunes. He's just playing the silliest tunes he can. He's just trumpeting, and and then if someone tries to talk to him and shout him down, he replies with the trumpet. So it's just like, he'll have a conversation.
My favorite way to do this is, I think that there is an organization that purposely hires clowns as the counter protest, so that any TV footage of the rally includes literally a clown car posse, and they're silly and doing acrobatics and making sounds. I mean, how seriously of a message can you put out there when your counter protesters are fucking clowns? I think that's brilliant.
Oh my god!
I do want to get into, and I think I try to bring this guy up every chance I get. I actually got to talk to him too, which I love the guy, Daryl Davis, who I know, Nate. I think you brought him up once in at least once in one of your streams. And Daryl Davis, for people who don't know, he is a musician, I think from New Orleans, but he's a black man, and what he does is he actually makes friends with members of the KKK. And what happened was, after about a year of being friends with a grand wizard in the KKK, and actually going to KKK rallies, and I've seen footage of even that wizard going and sitting there going like, it's like, yelling at his own Klansmen, saying that some of them are such cowards that he actually prefers Daryl to them, and you can see this kind of transformation once it's been humanized. What ended up, after about a year of being friends with this guy, the guy surrendered his robes. This was a grand wizard in the KKK, surrendered his robes to Daryl Davis and said that he didn't want to participate in this anymore. This wasn't him anymore. He had fundamentally changed. And so Daryl Davis now goes around and just makes friends with Klansmen, and there's no pressure. He's not, but he engages, and he engages honestly. There's no violence either, and he goes and this has, that I can tell, more long-lasting efficacy than punching someone. So I wanted to make sure I brought him up. I don't know I know you know who he is, Nate. I know, because I know you've mentioned him. You've shown some of his work on your stream. So is that appropriate? Am I kind of, does that? I mean, I guess I'm trying to show that's a much more, that takes investment. And that takes people who are willing to sit and do that, and that's not easy. And he's just a musician. He doesn't have a degree in psychology. He just said, I'm gonna be a person with them. And here it is working. So what are your thoughts?
I don't know. I it's interesting because one thing I find, it's easy to dehumanize people who you don't know. You don't know their culture. You don't know who they are. Like right now, when I was in law school, we used to have a Muslim Student Association and Israeli Student Association, right, for the Zionists. And it was interesting because one of the people in the Israeli group was saying how much they hate Islam and they hate Muslims because of all this bad things they did. And I was like, well, have you ever met one? What's been your interactions with people who of that faith? And they were like, well, I don't really have any friends. And only time I see people of that faith are on the news, blowing things up and all that stuff. And I said, look what happened. You've made a whole backstory and hatred model about these people based on what you've seen on the news. You know what I'm saying? You don't know anybody. And that at times, like a lot of times when you talk about people from the KKK and those people don't know any black people, right? They live in their bubble. Yeah. And a lot of people in who hate Muslims, for instance, in the United States, a lot of these people have never met anyone, a devout Muslim in that faith. They hear what they hear is what they hear from CNN and Fox News. So I always think if you can have a conversation with someone to just know that this is an actual person with actual feelings and actual understandings, then it demands that you now assess your own beliefs and then see whether they match up with what you're actually seeing in reality. Some people can do that, and some people can't.
So real quick, I don't remember whether it was World War I or World War II, but I was listening to like an audio book, something about it, and they were mentioning how, like, if it weren't for World War I or whichever ones of the wars, things would have been very different, because it was one of the first times that Americans from across the country were able to contact other Americans from different parts of the country. So, like, you had people with, because keep in mind that Protestants, the opinion of Catholics for Protestants back in the day was that they had horns coming out of their head, the same kind of weird anti-Semitic tropes that exist. And so, I mean, people were really tribal before the war, in a way that everybody having to work together as a team with different beliefs and religions and skin colors and thoughts really changed the way that I wouldn't really say race relations, because I'm not a social scientist, but it certainly changed perspectives of at least those soldiers. But I think this speaks to your point, Nate. Like, the more diverse the more diverse experiences you have with diverse populations, it shapes the way that you think about humans. If all you see are people your color, your ideology, your religion, your everything, if they're just so inside your bubble, they might as well be another version of you. That's going to shape the way you view other people.
Oh, you're muted.
And
Oh,
let's
there
not
you go.
forget, and let's not forget that in most times you're hearing that these other people are animals or this or that. I always tell this. I always tell a story like when I was in law school. There was a class called torts, and I was I was really good in torts, and I graduated from City College, right? So wasn't a prestigious school, but there was one of the students who was from an Ivy League school. She was from Princeton. So we're in law school together, same law school class, and she couldn't get it. She just wasn't getting it. So the professor, now in law school, you have a picture book, and it's interesting because picture books are like if you're Facebook is actually off the picture book, and then what they do, they take everybody's picture, put them in a book, and tells you who they are, what school they graduated from, and if they have any degrees or whatever. It's we call it a picture book, and actually Facebook was created off the picture book model from Harvard. So they saw the picture book Harvard, and they were like, oh, this would be nice to put on a website, and that's how we got Facebook. So most schools, most professional schools still do these picture books. So in there it says, I'm City College, I have my 2 degrees from City College. And she said, this student was like, well, hey, when the professor said, hey, Nate's got this like stone cold, ask him for help because he may be able to help you. She said to the professor, she was like, well, I don't think someone from City College was going to be able to help me. Now that was all because of her looking at a picture and her seeing a label, right? And then when it got worse, she actually came to one of our study groups and I broke everything down. She was like, what about this? So I broke everything down. And at the end of our law school career, graduation day, we're all both in thing and we're walking. She stops me and she says, I want to apologize to you because when I first met you, I thought you were just in this law school because you were black, because they needed a black person to fill a spot and they gave you a spot. Said, now I know that you deserve this spot more than most of the people here because you're probably one of the smartest people in this school. And it was my own microaggression that didn't allow me to overcome that. And because I met you, I now know that I have a problem and I'm going to help. So I think that's the power of getting outside that bubble. Because when you do meet somebody who you say, well, hold on, this person doesn't check any of those boxes, right? Matter of fact, this person shows me those boxes were bullshit. That's the way you get through the people, not punching her in the face. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's why, just to something I've talked about before, that's why cities, like throughout human history, cities have always been more liberal than rural areas, which are always more conservative. In rural areas, you have less contact with a diversity of people, and so you're not forced to challenge those beliefs. If you're working in a city, if you're going to be encountering transgender, gay, if you're going to be encountering people who are of different races, different religious beliefs than you, you could try to hold those prejudices as long as you like, but some of them you're going to have to let go of, or you're not going to be able to function. And you start to that's why the melting pot and the greater number of people to sort of bounce off of and encounter and depend on in a city creates a situation where, again, human history since before the Greeks, cities are always more liberal than the suburbs or the rural areas, because suburbs is a new thing, I know, but than rural areas, and that's precisely why it's the diversity of people and actually coming into contact with other ideas outside your own box. So with that, is there anything else on this topic that anybody wanted to hit up that we missed? And if not, we can just I'd like to hear you guys plug your stuff and see where people can find you. And I think we're done.
I have one last thing to contribute, and this is I was really hoping that my wife would be able to do this hang because she has such very clear opinions about this. So I'm going to try to be a little bit of a devil's advocate and say that from my wife's perspective, The might makes right opinion isn't all bad. Violence does solve problems, would be Shanna's point. And I think that we're approaching it from a very highfalutin, examined life perspective. But on the ground, if you can't hold your own and set a reputation that your boundaries are so clear that you will punch somebody just for words, there are cultures, many cultures within the United States where that is valued. Pride and loyalty and all of those buzzwords. There are certainly parts of the world where, and psychological studies have been done about this, where it's just a different world where if you are, there's a specific word for it that I can't shake loose right now, but I'm not going to waste your time. But there are cultures that are more pride oriented, where it's like they need it known to society at large that they're not someone to get fucked with. And that might, in proving that point, might involve just cold cocking somebody that says something mean to you, right? Again, I don't promote that, and I don't live in that culture. So I see it the way that I see it. Shanna has a little bit of experience living in cultures like that and having experiences like that where she has had to hold her own. So from her perspective, I think she would say that sometimes violence works. But I think that we can agree that we don't want to live in a society where might makes right is plan A. It is the thing that is valued. That it exists, like the point that I made earlier. I don't mind that it exists. I hope it doesn't happen I hope I don't say something that instigates it. I'm going to work my best not to instigate it based on people's words. But that people are getting cold cocked for saying really, really stupid shit, I wish it didn't happen. But humans are messy. Like we can simultaneously love each other and want this kind of retributive justice Schadenfreude thing, but just understand that there should be less of that and more of the compassion. Humans are messy. Rorschach tests.
Yeah, this is all aspirational, right? A lot of times I always say it's the means test, not the outcomes, and that's all that law is, and that's all we're talking about. It's how we get to the conclusion, not the conclusion itself. And I think there are different ways to get to that. Like you're saying, if I'm in the hood and I'm chilling with a whole bunch of people and I start saying going off the cuff by saying crazy things, then yeah, I would expect that brand of justice in that particular moment to be something. It may not be correct, but it's the reality of the moment, right? It's the reality of the situation, and we all act accordingly. We all act accordingly in those particular situations. But I also think that we're all aspirational, right? When we talk about the First Amendment and all these things, we're talking about the aspirational pieces of it. What we subscribe to be. I almost feel like a Christian when they say, you want to be more like Jesus. You want to be like that perfect person. And even though you'll never make it there, but it's the journey of trying to actually get there. That's what makes you the better person. And I think that's what this exercise is. It's can we get there? Can we get to the point where if someone says something we don't like, then it's okay, because we know that that's just their opinion, versus, okay, there has to be something that we got to get transcendent. I almost sound like Dawkins' deity with the presuppositionals. Transcendence, baby.
Transcendence is the legit thing, baby. Transcendence is the idea that instead of looking for peak experiences, you look for plateau experiences where your needs aren't the main concern, but your needs as combined with the needs of others. If everyone could transcend and get rid of bullshit dichotomies like right, wrong, left, right, black, white, if we can transcend those dichotomies, we will be treating each other differently inherently.
Well, I think, as to put my own spin on it, because there are people who do say, well, I think violence does solve some problems. World War II is a great example. I've spoken with pacifists who said we should still, even in hindsight, we shouldn't have gotten involved. It's like, nope, we should have. That was the right thing to do. I'm sorry, we had to. We absolutely. There are times when violence is unfortunately the only answer. We live in a universe. Hitchens also that's hostile to us and trying to kill us. Our own species is hostile to us sometimes and is trying to kill us. And there are times when the only solution is violence. Having said that, if you take a look at the mortality rate in human beings, life expectancy, and also happiness index for as long as that's been measured, but going back, if you want to say that the human race is 100,000 years old, which I think is a reasonable, you can say that. That's a defensible position. uh, as violence has gone down, as civilization has gone up, as we found ways to work through our problems non-violently, uh, the human life expectancy has gone up. And violence is, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's also medicine, there's also, but you can't do science as easily when people in non-civilized, if the world is falling apart around you, if you're constantly under threat of violence, you can't do science. You can't go about living and trying to build a stronger society. So that I can tell, the more we reduce violence, the better it is for everybody on multiple levels. But I think Chris did bring up a fair point, which is that's not always a practical. You can't always. There's the reality of where we are. So I think there's a tension there, but I think you can't ignore that just because sometimes violence is an answer, that means it's the best or a go-to. In fact, in very rare cases do I think it's the best. But that's sort of my. What do you think, Nate?
No, I agree. I think the reality is that, you know, when two countries, you know, disagree on something vehemently, they go to war. You know what I'm saying? They go to war because, you know, who's right? You know, who's right in this particular instance? And it happens all the time because sometimes you sometimes it's unavoidable. But you know, again, like I said, it's all aspirational. You know, we want to live in a world of no war. You know, even our fantasies about the future, they're still fighting there. You know, Star Trek, for instance, in the 24th century, they're still got, you know, they still got guns and battleships because violence is sometimes the answer. You know, but you know,
Aggression.
We strive for it not to be. Yeah, aggression, unfortunately. But Nick, unfortunately, I have to go because I got to go now.
Okay,
pick up the wife and take care.
We're
of the
bailing.
kids.
So go. What do you got coming up? What do you got coming up, real quick? What do you got coming up? Where can people find you?
Nate the Lawyer. Just, you know, search that into YouTube and it should pop up. I got, you know, I have I do a lot of police breakdown videos. I have one about the Breonna Taylor incident coming up, about how the boyfriend is now suing the police department. I think that's a pretty interesting case. Non-sec, obviously, Steve just filed his secret evidence, so I'm going to go through that probably tonight and look at that secret evidence because I'm always interested in secret evidence. And
we'll have a link.
And just and yes. And then I'll go and, you know, and so that's really what I do. And what I like to do, I like to call myself a legal communicator. I like to take complex legal issues and try to make them digestible so regular people can understand. So if that's what you like to hear, that's what my channel is about. And I want to thank you for having me on, Nick. This was great. And it's great to see you, Maute.
The reason we have Nate on is because he's good at this, and and he's good at communicating it and making it so it's accessible to everyone. That's why I watch his channel. That's why I'm a fan of his, and that's why I really appreciate having him on. So go check him out. Thank you, Nate. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, guys.
Chris, what do you got coming up? Where can people find you?
So my name is Christopher Maute. My YouTube channel is called Christopher Maute. I mostly do hangouts about meta topics or quality of life topics, like things that you can do for the purpose of growth. Music. I'm not an activist. I'm not an atheist activist, but I am a growth activist. So anything you can do for the purpose of growing yourself, right? Having that transcendent frame of mind. So I love cooking. I do shows on cooking. I love playing music. I do shows on music. I love talking about conversations. So I have meta discussions about that. I like talking about religion. So I have stuff like that. So on Tuesday, I have Dr. John Shook coming up. Oh, Jesus, with that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was completely listening to you. Yeah, you were saying self-improvement. Yeah. What?
Not on. Speaking of self-improvement with this. Anyway, so you can check me out if you want. Aaron Law is going to be on soon. I just Skyped with him today, so we're looking for a date and time to do a hang. So, otherwise, I'm on Nick's channel fucking all the time. So.
Yes, he is, and we are very, very lucky to have him. He's already in the description because we knew he was coming. So we'll get Nate in the description. Chris, thank you very much for joining us. It was a lot of people commenting in the live chat. Thank you all for commenting. Thank you all for your support. If you enjoy the show, please do hit the thumbs up. That helps. It really helps. So please do that. Like and subscribe. We will be having our Patreon hangout on Monday, 2:00. People can come in, chat. We can talk about the show. We can talk about guests. We can talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. That's it's a hangout for you guys. So look forward to seeing you guys then. We also have a whole bunch of shows coming up. Like I said, on the 15th, the Ontology of Gender. We've got John Shook is actually going to be here twice. We're going to be talking about generations theory. We're also going to be talking about World War III. People talk about and think about World War III a lot. There are people whose job it is to think about World War III. Is it going to come from China? Is it come from the USSR? How do we know? It was a trending hashtag several times this year. It's already been a trending hashtag several times this year. It was the most noticeable when we really just, people were actually asking us on this show, is this World War III? Was the Iran, when Iran attacked the Green Zone in Iraq? But we're going to talk about that. We're going to break down some stuff. We've got a lot of really good shows planned, so we look forward to seeing you guys and doing that. And until then, I think that just about covers it. So we will catch you all up on the flip side. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Nate. And we'll catch up with you guys soon.